Here in Hualien, the entire town is covered in mud after a dam burst up in the mountains, flooding the area. But rescue efforts are underway.
New limits on Taiwan's chip exports to South Africa as a political dispute escalates. Outrage in Prague as Taiwan receives terror threats over a special display it sent there.
外交部已经指示我国驻捷克代表处立即洽请捷克警方注意，另外也建议陆委会将该恐吓电邮送交我国警政单位查处。
Plus, we see how a village in northern Taiwan is helping people with dementia. Welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Laurel Stewart. At least 17 people have died on Taiwan's east coast after Typhoon Ragasa moved past the country. A dam in the mountains above the town of Guangfu overflowed due to torrential rain, causing flash floods that inundated the town below. Our reporter Irene Lin joins us live from Guangfu. Irene, what's the situation there?
Laurel, is truly a devastating scene here in Guangfu. There's a thick layer of grayish mud covering much of the town. Now, the locals told me that the muddy water came out of the blue, rushing down the streets and into their homes. Many did not have the time to react and evacuate to higher grounds. Here's what they said.
怎么我们门都有关下来，怎么会水那么大，又漂流物那么多？后来才知道说，原来是车子已经把我的门撞坏了。 撞坏了以后，那个水就直接冲进来，冲到我的楼上来了。你们看，我营业用了2台冰箱，还有我的事务桌都冲走了。
他消防局比较早通知啊，我们一直看水没有来，就不以为意，原来以为是很小，溢流了以后就冲破了那个泵体，我们这边就淹了。因为它堰塞湖的水也蛮多的。
Now, as you can see behind me is a convenience store that has its display windows shattered by floodwaters. And just outside the shop is a cargo container stuck at a dangerous angle. Now, some residents are trying to clean up by shoveling out the mud, but it's a never-ending job as the rain continues in this area, flooding the streets over and over. And as of now, authorities have confirmed 17 people dead and over a dozen still missing. But help from other cities and counties, including the military, is coming in. Now, they've found over 100 people reported missing and are clearing out the streets using excavators and bulldozers.
So, Irene, officials evacuated thousands of people before the dam burst, but we're still seeing reports of casualties. How did all this happen?
So authorities did evacuate downstream villages in 3 surrounding townships. And on Tuesday morning, just hours before the dam breached, they expanded that evacuation warning to the broader area. But many people thought the dam would not breach, and they decided to stay put. And there was an estimated 4 times more water spilling out from the dam than the officials had expected. And that's what caused the damage that we see now.
Thank you for that, Irene. That was Irene Lin reporting from Guangfu in Hualien. As we just heard, rescue teams have been working on recovery efforts on the east coast after the typhoon hit. Tiffany Wong reports on when the flooding first hit.
脚不见了，脚掉了，脚掉了。
A resident screams as the Ma Tai'an Creek Bridge in Hualien is swept away by heavy rains from Typhoon Ragasa. It's now the deadliest typhoon to hit the country in years after a nearby dam overflowed twice on Tuesday, with the floodwater reaching close to 1-story high. Residents clung to pillars and climbed onto their roofs, trying to avoid the muddy floodwaters. Others appeared to be stuck in cars that were swept away. The remote Guangfu township has seen the most casualties, including several elderly people found by rescue teams on the first floors of their homes. Over 100 people are still missing.
我妈妈被水淹没了，走了，尸体还在家里，被泥土都掩盖了。
In a post on social media, President Lai Ching-te said the military would help local governments with rescue and recovery efforts, and multiple ministries are also helping with cleaning up the floodwaters. Fire departments from around the country sent emergency personnel to help out. Premier Zhou Rongtai went to Guangfu Township on Wednesday morning to oversee recovery efforts. And Vice President Bi Kim Xiao also came to the area to check on displaced residents. Traffic into the township via train has resumed, but while the worst of the storm has passed, residents are still urged to be careful.
那考量堤防可能有缺口，而且河道本身已经下游河道有淤积，那边是缩小的，所以是建议就是不要靠近河道。
The storm has left Taiwan and is expected to hit Hong Kong and China's Guangdong province hard. Although the full extent of its damage is yet to be seen, it's already left a heavy toll on Taiwan. Ryan Wu and Tiffany Wong for TaiwanPlus.
Over 60 people have been injured in Hong Kong because of Typhoon Ragasa. About 800 residents took shelter in 50 temporary facilities across the city as the storm unleashed heavy rain and strong winds, toppling trees, tearing apart a bridge, as well as rooftops. Flooding and landslides were also reported. Local authorities downgraded Ragasa from a super typhoon to a severe typhoon after leaving the area. The storm is still moving west. Taiwan is moving to require prior approval for 47 chip-related exports to South Africa. That's after South Africa downgraded and pushed to relocate Taiwan's representative office. It's a new strategy for Taipei, one that poses possibilities and risks. Chris Gorin reports.
South African car factories like these could soon be feeling negative effects after Taiwan announced that it will restrict exports of 47 products to the country, including computer chips and memory, the latest turn in a dispute over Taiwan's diplomatic missions in South Africa.
南非政府在今年7月21日发布政府公报，片面对我国驻南非代表处以及驻开普敦办事处采取更名降格的举措。我国政府基于维护国家主权及尊严的立场，即启动限制晶片输往南非的反制措施。
At the center is South Africa's move to downgrade Taiwan's representative office from a so-called liaison office to a commercial office, and to move it out of the political capital Pretoria to the country's largest city, Johannesburg, about 56 kilometers away. But Taipei protested the decision from the start and continues to operate at its Pretoria location. The export controls represent an escalation from Taipei. And while South Africa is not a major buyer of advanced chips, certain local industries could be affected.
南非它在这个半导体的这个制造设计的能力是很有限，所以它最主要还是要依赖这个进口晶片成熟制成的晶片那如果说我们对它管制的话，就会影响南非的，比如说它的电子制造啊、通讯设备，还有汽车零组件这些产业。
The move marks a turning point for Taiwan's use of export controls for diplomatic purposes. Speaking in New York, South Africa's president spoke about Taiwan's actions and his own.
The reduction of exports to South Africa obviously will impact on us, but we will always find a way of dealing with them or with that issue. So in our view, the step that we have taken has been taken by many other countries in the world. With regard to Taiwan. And our view is that it should not be over-politicized.
Taiwan's role as a key chip supplier creates opportunities for leverage. But some experts say, as chips made in other countries like South Korea and China continue to advance, the strategy also poses a risk of backfiring.
You might open up a trade opportunity for mainland China in the future, maybe hurting Taiwan's export market in South Africa in the future, because once it's gone, maybe it's gone. You know, they might find alternative sources. Yes, in the short term, might work, but in the long term, might not.
Taiwan's foreign ministry says it wants to consult with South Africa in the 60 days before the export controls take effect. a window that could show whether both sides dial down tensions or dig in their respective positions. Luffy Li and Chris Gorin for TaiwanPlus.
US lawmakers are restating Washington's position on Taiwan, urging Chinese officials that the issue must be settled peacefully and without coercion. They made the comments during a meeting with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, aimed at easing tensions and improving communication between the two countries. US Representative Adam Smith, who's heading the bipartisan congressional delegation, says he hopes both countries can keep military-to-military dialogue open to ease tensions and avoid mishaps. The delegation also met with China's top legislator, Zhao Leji, as well as its premier and defense minister. US Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy has called for Taiwan's inclusion in the International Civil Aviation Organization, or ICAO, during its latest meeting.
It is also essential that all international aviation stakeholders, particularly Taiwan, are meaningfully included in ICAO's technical activities. There is no room for politics on this question. This is about safety and security of the global system that we all enjoy, and of which Taiwan is an active part.
Pressure from China has prevented Taiwan from taking part in the organization, despite being the world's 11th biggest aviation market. Both US and Canadian politicians have been pushing in recent days for Taiwan's inclusion. Taiwan's National Palace Museum is celebrating its 100th anniversary with a special display in the Czech Republic. But as Alan Liu reports, the exhibition has been marred by threats of a possible terror attack.
The National Palace Museum in Taipei recently sent several artifacts to the Czech Republic for a special exhibition. But now Taiwan's government says it has received threats of a potential attack if the event goes on. The museum began its centennial overseas exhibition at the Czech National Museum on September 11th. But Taiwan's Mainland Affairs Council, Foreign Ministry, and Culture Ministry all received emails threatening arson, theft, and shootings if the exhibit continues. The National Palace Museum says it has tightened security and called for respect toward cultural exchange activities.
今天上午，故宫萧院长已经召开捷克展紧急应变会议，在会上也邀请故宫的相关单位共同研议应变措施。对于这个捷克国家博物馆方面，我们一接获消息之后，就有通知驻捷代表处跟捷克国家博物馆来防患未然。
The Palace Museum says the exhibition is currently proceeding normally. The Mainland Affairs Council, which handles relations with China, says it strongly condemns the threats and that it's working with Taiwan's representative office and authorities in the Czech Republic to step up security measures there. The Foreign Ministry also says it's working with the Czech representative office to liaise with the Czech police.
外交部已经指示我国驻捷克代表处立即洽请捷克警方注意。另外，也建议陆委会将该恐吓电邮 送交我国警政单位查处。
As Taiwan condemns the threats, attention is now all on what happens next and whether the exhibition will be affected. Liang Lian and Ellen Lu in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
US President Donald Trump has addressed the UN on a range of topics, but one big issue on his mind was Russia's invasion of Ukraine. In a change of posture, he's now behind NATO and even suggesting Ukraine can restore its pre-war borders with help. John Van Trieste has this report.
Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning.
U.S. President Donald Trump has met with a crowd of reporters at the United Nations. What's the message you're bringing? One shouts. It's something the world is wondering as Trump prepares to address this year's General Assembly. Many world leaders will do so, but few are as powerful or unpredictable. The answer is a mix. In about an hour-long speech, he attacked immigration in Europe, called green energy a con job, credited himself with stopping wars, questioned the very point of the UN, and more. Unlike his predecessor Joe Biden, he did not discuss Taiwan. And even China only got a few mentions for buying Russian oil and making wind turbines. One thing definitely on Trump's mind, though, is Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And after largely inconclusive talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin, he says the U.S. is ready to put more pressure on Moscow and that he expects Europe to chip in, particularly by stopping imports of Russian energy.
In the event that Russia is not ready to make a deal to end the war, then the United States is fully prepared to impose a very strong round of powerful tariffs which would stop the bloodshed, I believe, very quickly. But for those tariffs to be effective, European nations, all of you are gathered here right now, would have to join us in adopting the exact same measures.
Trump's stance on the Ukraine war and NATO's role in it looks to have shifted markedly. After his UN speech, he met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Before the meeting, the previously NATO skeptic Trump even told reporters he's now strongly behind the alliance, especially as Russian aircraft violate allies' airspace.
Do you think that NATO countries should shoot down Russian aircraft if they enter their airspace?
Yes, I do.
And that's just the start of an apparent about-face. Trump once said Ukraine might have to give up territory to Russia to end the war. But in a social media post, he says Russia looks like a paper tiger and suggested that Ukraine, with support, can get back to its pre-war borders.
Hi.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky didn't give much away about what the two discussed in their meeting. But in an exchange with a reporter, he had this to say about Trump.
I said it from the first second of our today's meeting. I will not share all the details.
But from your perspective, is it a game changer that he now believes, that President Trump now believes?
Trump is a game changer by himself.
Trump has taken a special interest in ending the 3-year Russia-Ukraine war. And as of Tuesday, it seems like he's trying out a new tactic to get the job done. Howard Zhang and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
For a better understanding of what Trump's UN speech means for Taiwan and China, John Van Trieste spoke to Jia-in Chong from the National University of Singapore.
So during his UN speech, Trump mentioned a wide range of topics, but Taiwan, the Taiwan Strait didn't figure in his remarks, and he really didn't mention China that much. Why do you think that is?
Well, Trump's speech seems, a lot of his speeches seem to be focused on what is on his mind at that particular moment or sort of around that time. So it just would appear to me that for whatever reason, Trump was not thinking hard about China or Taiwan when he was preparing and making a speech. I mean, he has a very impromptu style. He talked a lot about teleprompters and escalators, for instance.
But do you think that this lack of mention of China or even the Indo-Pacific shows some sort of change in U.S. policy towards Taiwan or China?
It could, but it's really hard to tell from just one Trump speech. I mean, one thing we know from Trump is he sort of flies by the seat of his pants a little bit, especially when making public deliveries of speeches. So, it could be there's some change. It could be just that it's not interesting to him at this moment.
Do we have any indication from other U.S. officials about what this might mean?
So far, I haven't seen any sort of readouts that talk about the China relationship. I mean, what we do know is that, there was that TikTok deal that Trump had touted as a big victory for himself. What that actually means in terms of details, we've not seen, but that's the sort of most recent sort of big issue he's sort of touched on with China. He's, touched on other issues such as buying Russian oil, but that didn't come up this time around. In fact, when he talked about Russian oil in this speech, it referenced the Europeans, actually.
Well, even if the U.S. policy hasn't changed towards the Indo-Pacific region and Taiwan and China, can we say from this speech that maybe the U.S.'s foreign policy focus has shifted? After all, he'd had a meeting with Zelensky afterwards and was talking about Ukraine.
Certainly, it seems that in this speech that the Trump administration and Trump himself seems far more supportive of the Ukrainian war effort, of the Europeans as they resist Russian aggression. So that seems to be what's at the top of his mind. Whether that means that there is some sort of going to be some sort of sacrifice of U.S. resources in the Indo-Pacific, that it's not possible to tell that from the speech.
That was Jia-in Chong from the National University of Singapore. One rural Taiwan district is taking a unique approach to caring for its community members living with dementia. It's one of the only so-called dementia villages in the world. This second part of our series shows how every part of the village has jumped in to help. Cadence Caranta has this story.
In Pingxi, a rural district nestled in the mountains of northern Taiwan, 1 in every 3 residents is over 65. Making it the oldest district by percentage of elderly residents in all of Taiwan. Currently, around 80 of those residents are living with dementia, an incurable neurological condition that causes gradual cognitive decline. They are able to live comfortably here because of a unique network of care, one that involves virtually every part of society. It began with Pingxi's local health center, but eventually more parts of the community entered the picture, ushered in by Pingxi's district executive. Police, garbage truck drivers, firefighters now all play a role.
清洁队去收垃圾的时候，这个长辈没有出来倒垃圾，你要不要去注意他是不是真的不在家，还是生病了，还是发生什么事？我们就要从日常生活的一些行为去观察。这件事情连警察都有角色哦，他会有巡逻。 我们也有长辈半夜出去走的，他如果巡逻发现的，他也是一个触角，帮我们找到这一个人。
The district executive even repaved the street to make it more level, easier for older people to walk on. And along these streets, shopkeepers keep an eye out for residents with dementia or older people who might need help. This shopkeeper keeps a copy of his elderly neighbor's keys in case they forget them at home. And over at the Dementia Center, set up by a Taiwanese charity foundation, residents find activities to participate in and ways to socialize for as little as around $1 a day, the rest paid for by government subsidies. This 96-year-old resident comes here most days.
我们呢很喜欢来这里，有开话、讲话，什么有听话、听故事。我在这里哦，我这是看新闻嘛，没有啊。
She's eager to share what she's learned here.
恰恰我也会跳嘞。 天边恰恰，后天恰恰，右边恰恰。
The center also works to help put their family members at ease, many of whom have moved away.
其实也希望就是远在其他地方住的这些他的子女啊、晚辈啊可以安心。有很多时候我们他的。 身体状况的变化，或是他的一些就是目前的一些生活的一些回报，就是因为他们不在身边嘛。那有时候我们就会帮这些子女，就是当做他的眼睛。
It's also a goal of the dementia village as a whole, to care not just for those living with dementia, but also their families, who are often deeply affected. This resident, who requested not to be identified, cares for her brother-in-law with dementia. He needs to be watched virtually 24/7, which was hard. Things have gotten better since the health center started to make home visits. She said they give her much-needed breaks.
所以他们也给我们很多的协助。各管事说了一句话让我很感动，他说：“不管你有什么问题，你都可以告诉我。”对。然后我发现，他们不只照顾个案本身，然后也照顾我们家属的。
Now, the dementia village has turned its focus to what can be done before cognitive decline really begins. They've started talking to residents about making end-of-life medical decisions ahead of time.
因为毕竟失智症长辈他在前期的时候是还清楚可以自己做决定的，但是当他严重度越来越严重的时候，可能他的意识状况或者是表达就越来越困难。 并不是以后都不救这样子的长辈，而是说让他们在清楚的时候，可以为以后不清楚的自己先做好他们可能想要或不想要的医疗决定。
All of this work, they say, serves not just residents currently living with dementia, but also all those in the community who will grow old in the future, including themselves.
看起来好像我们在照顾老人，可是事实上，我们是在铺一条路。那以后这条路是要照顾我们自己的，所以你想要未来怎么被照顾，那就是现在我们要怎么样把这一条路给做好，我们要怎么去照顾它。
In this way, Pingxi is paving its own unique path, bit by bit, improving the way it cares for those living with dementia, anchored in a kindness that can be felt deeply here, a sense of responsibility everyone in this community has to do their part to care for the people around them, their friends, customers, neighbors, that eventually, they hope, can be continued on, serving not just those living with dementia now, but also all those who come after them. Klein Wang, John Su, Pichi Zhuang, and Cadence Quaranta for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan has won its second game of this year's Asian Baseball Championship. The team shut out South Korea 10-0 in China on Tuesday night. Taiwan scored 6 runs in the first inning to take a commanding lead and added another run in the 5th. In the bottom of the 7th, player Chen Min-shi sealed the victory with a 2-run homer. The game ended early under the mercy rule. The tournament is Asia's highest level baseball competition. The team will next face Hong Kong on Wednesday night. Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, take a look at these celebrations at a Buddhist festival in Myanmar. I'm Laurel Stewart. Take care. See you next time.